The world of humans has always been surrounded by mystery. The starry nights and thunder that tore through the skies seemed to hide a superior force. However, for ancient civilizations, Olympus was not just a metaphor, but a tangible reality. The question was not whether the gods existed, but how and why they had decided to interact with mortals. The first contact between the two spheres, divine and human, is described as a landmark event, a watershed in history. Stories suggest that Zeus, the ruler of Olympus, was intrigued by the growing determination of humans. Despite their fragility, they exhibited a stubbornness that allowed them to survive and thrive. According to myths, the moment of greatest divine curiosity occurred when humans began to gather in tribes and form the first communities. The sacrifices on improvised altars and the chants directed to heaven caught the attention of the gods. It is said that Zeus first descended to earth during a great storm. Its thunderbolt, a symbol of power and authority, lit up the heavens, and the humans, terrified, prostrated themselves in reverence. It was a spectacle that marked the beginning of a complex relationship. Powerful gods and fragile humans, united by admiration, fear, and curiosity. The impact was immediate. Entire villages reorganized themselves, creating rituals and temples to please these higher entities. But what humans didn't know was that contact also affected the gods. Accustomed to Olympus, where everything was perfect and predictable, they began to find in mortals something deeply enigmatic, intense emotions, and a vulnerability that they themselves were unaware of. This duality created an ambiguous relationship. The gods wanted to be venerated, but they also wanted to understand human passions. It was this moment of early interaction that shaped the foundation of many beliefs and cultures. It was not just about religion, but an exchange of experiences. Humans received guidance, while the gods found meaning in their own eternal existences. Even today, the stories of first contact make us reflect on the transformative power of this connection between the sacred and the mundane. Before continuing our journey to Olympus, leave your like, write yourself on the channel, and activate the bell, so that together we don't miss any stories. At a time when humans lived as wild creatures, at the mercy of the forces of nature, the arrival of Prometheus changed everything. He was a titan, a figure between the gods and the humans, known for his boldness. The story of how he stole fire to give to men is one of the most iconic in Greek mythology and symbolizes the first great divine gift to humanity. According to myth, Zeus decided to keep fire only for the gods, seeing it as a symbol of power and exclusivity. Humans were in submission, but Prometheus did not accept this hierarchy. He saw in mortals a spark of potential that could be ignited, literally, by fire. Then, on a stealthy night, he ascended to Olympus, stole a small flame, and hid it in an iron pipe. Prometheus' act was more than a robbery. It was a statement. He believed that humans had the right to progress. From fire, they learned how to cook, how to heat themselves, and how to forge tools. This marked the beginning of a new era. Tribes became societies, and survival gave way to cultural and technological development. Zeus, however, saw this gift as a betrayal. Not only did he punish Prometheus by chaining him to a rock to suffer eternally, but he also placed a curse on humans. He created Pandora and its box, full of evils, to balance the positive impact of fire. Thus, humans gained the power to transform the world, but also pain and suffering. This story is a powerful metaphor for progress. Prometheus' gift brought light to the world, but at a cost. He reminds us that advancement always comes with challenges, and that challenging the status quo, even for a noble cause, has consequences. Throughout history, the concept of a great flood has been a recurring theme in many cultures. In ancient Greece, this narrative took shape in the myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha, an account that speaks of both the wrath of the gods and human resilience. The Greek myth of the flood is more than just a story of destruction. It is a lesson in humility, renewal, and the unbreakable connection between gods and mortals. The origin of the flood dates back to Zeus' dissatisfaction with humanity. According to legend, humans, once simple and reverent, had become arrogant and corrupt. Ignoring the offerings and rituals dedicated to Olympus, they came to see themselves as equals to the gods, an unforgivable sin in the view of the king of Olympus. Zeus, outraged by the neglect, decided that only a radical solution could correct the imbalance: destroy humanity and start from scratch. Zeus' decision was not made in isolation. He summoned the other Olympian gods to a meeting. On that occasion, each of them expressed their opinion on the fate of humans. While Eros supported the idea of exemplary punishment, other gods, such as Athena and Apollo, expressed concern about the complete extinction of a race, which, despite its flaws, still showed potential. Still, Zeus' word prevailed, and the Great Flood was decreed. When the rains began, they were not just water. They were the wrath of the gods materialized. Rivers overflowed, seas swallowed land, and mountains were surrounded by waters. The destruction was so complete that within a few days, the earth became a vast ocean. However, in the midst of the chaos, two figures stood out: Deucalion, son of Prometheus, and his wife, Pyrrha. The two were known for their kindness and devotion to the gods, and for this reason, they were chosen to survive and ensure the rebirth of humanity. Prometheus, the titan who had already defied Zeus by stealing fire for humans, could not allow his son to fall victim to divine fury. He warned Deucalion of the impending flood, instructing him to build a large ark. The couple worked tirelessly, gathering provisions and sealing the structure against the waters. When the flood began, they entered the ark and remained protected while the world around them was destroyed. After endless days of storm, the waters began to recede. Deucalion and Pyrrha, floating in their ark, finally reached the top of Mount Parnassus, where they found dry land. Still, the sight was bleak. The earth was empty, a vast desert of mud and silence. Distressed, they sought divine guidance. It was then that they received a cryptic message from an oracle: "Throw your mother's bones backwards, and thus you will repopulate the world." Initially confused, Deucalion and Pyrrha took the message literally, fearing to disrespect their mother's remains. However, upon reflection, they realized that mother could refer to the earth, the mother of all living beings. Following this logic, they began to throw stones, the bones of the earth, backwards. As the stones touched the ground, they transformed into men and women, the first of the new humanity. This act of renewal marked the beginning of a completely new era. The story of Deucalion and Pyrrha not only reinforces the strength of humans to overcome adversity, but also underlines the importance of their relationship with the gods. The flood, although devastating, was a learning event. Zeus, upon seeing the couple's devotion and perseverance, seemed to reconsider their severity, vowing never again to destroy humanity so drastically. The Greek flood myth also resonates with other flood stories in cultures such as Babylonian and Judeo-Christian. This parallel suggests that the idea of a rebirth after destruction is universal, deeply rooted in the human imagination. The waters can symbolize both death and purification, a force that destroys to create something. Today, the myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha remains a powerful metaphor. He reminds us that even in the most extreme circumstances, there is an opportunity for a fresh start. It's also a reminder that the gods, or in a modern sense, the larger forces that govern our lives, have the power to destroy but also to give a second chance. Thus, the flood becomes more than a punishment. He is a lesson in humility, and the idea of a hero who transcends human limitations has always been an essential part of mythological narratives. In ancient Greece, Perseus was the first to occupy this role, a young man who embodied courage, strength, and the importance of divine aid. His story is a milestone in mythology, not only for his impressive feats, but because it reveals the complex relationship between gods and humans. Perseus was not just a hero. He was the prototype of all those who would come after, defining the archetype that would influence generations of narratives. Perseus was the son of Zeus and immortal Danae. His birth, like his life, was surrounded by mysteries and prophecies. Perseus' grandfather, Acrisius, king of Argos, had been warned by an oracle that he would be killed by his own grandson. Fearing fate, he locked Danae in a bronze tower, but not even the metal walls could stop Zeus' will. Disguised as a golden shower, the king of the gods entered the tower and conceived Perseus. When Acrisius found out that his daughter had given birth, he ordered mother and son to be thrown overboard into a chest. However, fate had other plans. Guided by the divine winds, Danae and Perseus arrived at the island of Seriphos, where they were welcomed by Dictys, a humble fisherman. It was in this refuge that Perseus grew up, unaware of his divine origin and the crucial role he would play in the future. Perseus' heroic journey began with an impossible mission: to decapitate Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze turned any living being to stone. Polydectes, the tyrant of the island, devised this task as a trap to get rid of Perseus. However, the young hero was not alone. Knowing the challenge he faced, Athena and Hermes intervened, offering him weapons that no mortal could possess. Athena gave him a shield shining like a mirror, essential to avoid Medusa's gaze, while Hermes gave him winged sandals, allowing him to fly. The journey to Medusa's cave was long and full of dangers. Perseus had to consult the Graeae, three elderly sisters who shared a single eye and a single tooth. Using his cunning, he stole the sister's eye, demanding information about the Gorgon's hideout. This display of courage and intelligence highlighted Perseus as more than just a warrior. He was tactician and determined. When facing Medusa, Perseus used Athena's shield to look at her reflection and avoid being petrified. With a precise blow, he decapitated the creature and kept its head in a magical bag. On his return, he met Andromeda, a princess condemned to be sacrificed to a sea monster. Using Medusa's head, Perseus turned the monster to stone, freeing Andromeda and marrying her. Perseus' legacy is monumental. He was a hero who combined deadly courage with divine favor, proving that to achieve great things, a balance between strength and wisdom was necessary. His story not only enshrined him as the first great Greek hero, but also showed that the gods, while powerful, needed humans as much as humans needed them. The concept of heroism was redefined, inspiring future myths and shaping the idea of leadership to the present day. Since the dawn of civilization, the search for answers has been an inherent characteristic of human beings. In the world of ancient Greece, this need to understand the future and seek guidance found a direct channel in the oracles. These individuals, seen as divine messengers, played a crucial role, acting as a bridge between the world of mortals and the realm of the gods. Among them, the Oracle of Delphi, dedicated to Apollo, was the most famous, becoming a symbol of the power and mystery of prophecies. Located at the foot of Mount Parnassus, the sanctuary of Delphi was considered the center of the world, the navel of the earth. Pilgrims traveled from all parts of Greece and beyond to consult the Pythia, the priestess of Apollo. The process was shrouded in rituals. The Pythia sat on a tripod over a crack in the earth, from which vapors emanated that were believed to connect her to the god. In a state of trance, she uttered enigmatic words that were interpreted by the priests, transforming them into prophecies. The impact of these prophecies was immense. Political leaders, generals, and even ordinary citizens shaped their decisions based on the words of the oracle. But the answers of the gods were rarely straightforward. A classic example is the prophecy given to King Croesus of Lydia. The oracle stated that he would destroy a great empire if he attacked the Persians. Confident, Croesus started the war, but the empire destroyed was his own, showing that the words of the gods required careful interpretation. The oracles also reveal the duality of the gods. While offering guidance, they tested human wit. This reinforced the idea that fate, though controlled by the gods, could be shaped by the intelligence of mortals. Many mythological heroes were also given prophecies that guided their journeys, such as Oedipus, whose attempt to escape fate sealed his tragedy. In addition to being a link between gods and humans, oracles played a social and political role. They unified cities, reinforced the authority of leaders, and created a sense of continuity between the divine and the human. The mystery surrounding them perpetuated respect for the gods, ensuring that mortals remained aware of their dependence on Olympus. Today, oracles stand as a symbol of the human search for the unknown. They show that, even with limitations, humans have always sought to understand and, in a way, control the future. More than tools of the gods, the oracles were reminders that the journey in search of answers is, in itself, a way to connect with the divine. In the vastness of Olympus, there was something beyond divine power and majesty, creative inspiration. The Muses, daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory, were responsible for instilling in humans the desire to create, tell stories, and preserve knowledge. Representing the arts and sciences, the nine Muses not only enriched the mortal world but also shaped civilization as we know it today. With his gifts, culture was born. Clio, Euterpe, Thalia, Melpomene, Terpsichore, Eurydice, Polymnia, Urania, and Calliope. Each of these goddesses had a specific domain, such as poetry, history, music, and dance. However, its impact went beyond the individual categories. They symbolized the human ability to transcend physical limitations and enter a realm of creativity and abstract thinking. The Greeks believed that without the Muses, the world would just be an empty existence, devoid of beauty and meaning. The power of the Muses was not randomly distributed. They appeared to those who showed true dedication to their art. A poet or musician could spend years searching for his muse, believing that by finding her, he would receive divine inspiration to compose eternal works. This belief created an emotional connection between the artist and the gods, transforming the creative act into a sacred ritual. The myths are filled with stories of mortals who encountered the Muses. A famous example is the poet Hesiod, who claimed to have received the inspiration to compose his work, Theogony, directly from the goddesses on Mount Helicon. He describes how the Muses taught him about the origin of the gods and the cosmos, entrusting him with the task of passing on this knowledge to future generations. However, the relationship between mortals and Muses was not always harmonious. Some dared to challenge these entities, believing that they could surpass their divine ability. A striking example is the story of the Pierides, 9 mortal sisters who challenged the Muses to a musical competition. The Pierides' boldness angered the goddesses, who not only won the contest but also turned the sisters into birds as punishment for their arrogance. In addition to the arts, the Muses played a key role in the preservation of knowledge. As daughters of the goddess of memory, they ensured that stories, discoveries, and ideas were not forgotten. This was particularly important at a time when traditions were passed down orally. Every poem, song, or epic narrative inspired by the Muses was actually a way to immortalize human history. The Muses also helped to create a bridge between the mortal and the divine worlds. By inspiring artists, they allowed humans to catch a glimpse of Olympus through their creativity. A staged tragedy or an ode sung in honor of the gods was both a tribute and a reminder that inspiration was a sacred gift. This link between art and spirituality has persisted over the centuries, influencing not only mythology, but also philosophy and religion. In the modern world, the Muses remain a powerful metaphor. They represent the creative spark we all seek, the idea that something bigger inspires us to create, innovate, and imagine. Although the literal belief in the Muses has disappeared, their legacy lives on in art, literature, and the very concept of inspiration. After all, whenever someone seeks their muse, they are, in a way, honoring these mythological figures who, according to the Greeks, gave us the most precious gift, culture. Icarus, on the other hand, is one of the most intriguing characters in Greek mythology, known as much for his audacity as for his tragedy. His story is a warning about the dangers of challenging the limits imposed by the gods and nature. However, behind this narrative of fall and failure, there is a deep reflection on human ambition, the desire to transcend, and the costs of ignoring divine warnings. The story begins with Daedalus, Icarus' father, and a brilliant inventor. After helping Ariadne save Theseus from the labyrinth of Crete, Daedalus and his son were imprisoned by King Minos as punishment. Determined to escape, Daedalus devised an audacious plan to build wings made of feathers and wax, allowing him and Icarus to fly to freedom. Before they left, Daedalus warned his son not to fly too low because the sea would moisten his wings, nor too high because the heat of the sun would melt the wax. At first, the plan worked perfectly. Icarus and Daedalus took flight, gliding through the winds. It was a magnificent sight, as if humans had finally conquered the kingdom of heaven. For Daedalus, the flight was a matter of survival. For Icarus, it was a dream come true. He began to ignore his father's advice, enchanted by the feeling of freedom and the proximity of the sun. As Icarus climbed, tragedy unfolded. The wax that held the wings together began to melt, and in an instant of terror, he lost control. Icarus fell from the sky, falling into the sea that would bear his name, the Sea of Icarus. Daedalus, upon seeing the fall of his son, was overcome with deep mourning, but could do nothing but continue on his way. The story of Icarus is not just a personal tragedy. It symbolizes the eternal struggle between human ambition and natural limits. Icarus flew too high because he believed he could achieve the impossible, ignoring warnings and underestimating the forces that govern the universe. His fall is a reminder that the gods imposed limits not only to control, but also to protect. However, many also interpret the story as a compliment to courage. Icarus knew the risks, but chose to experience the sensation of touching the unreachable, even if for a brief moment. In his fall, he became a symbol of the human spirit, which seeks to push boundaries, even when the consequences can be fatal. The Greeks understood this duality. To them, Icarus was both a fool and a hero. He defied Olympus, paid the price, but left an eternal legacy. His story echoes across diverse cultures and eras, reminding us that the pursuit of greatness always comes with a cost. And yet we continue to dream, to fly, and sometimes to fall. Few mythological stories capture the drama, tragedy, and complexity of the relationships between gods and mortals as much as the Trojan War. Much more than a human conflict, the war was the scene of a cosmic dispute where the gods of Olympus, each with their own interests, not only observed, but manipulated the fate of heroes and kingdoms. God's participation in this epic reveals how deeply invested the gods were in human history, shaping it in ways as grand as they were cruel. The origin of the conflict dates back to one of the most famous episodes in Greek mythology, the trial of Paris. During the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, Achilles' parents, all the gods were invited except Eros, the goddess of discord. Furious at the exclusion, Eros threw a golden apple with the inscription "to the fairest." 3 goddesses claimed the title: Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. To settle the dispute, Zeus ordered Paris, prince of Troy, to choose the most beautiful among them. Each goddess offered a bribe to secure her choice. Hera promised power, Athena offered wisdom and military victories, while Aphrodite promised the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen, wife of Menelaus, king of Sparta. Paris chose Aphrodite, setting off a series of events that would culminate in the Trojan War. The gods were not left out of the conflict. On the one hand, Hera and Athena supported the Greeks, motivated by resentment against Aphrodite. On the other, Aphrodite, Apollo, and Artemis protected the Trojans, creating a division on Olympus. Zeus, although he tried to maintain a neutral position, occasionally intervened to ensure that balance was maintained, but even he could not resist the unfolding drama. On Earth, mortals have become pieces on a divine chessboard. Greek heroes such as Achilles, Odysseus, and Agamemnon were often guided or hindered by the wills of the gods. Athena inspired strategy and encouraged Greek warriors, while Apollo deflected deadly arrows and protected the Trojans. Even the most tragic events, such as the death of Patroclus and the duel between Achilles and Hector, were deeply rooted in divine machinations. Divine intervention was often cruel. A striking example is Apollo's role in the death of Achilles. Although the hero was nearly invincible, his heel vulnerability was exploited by the god, who guided Paris' arrow to reach the fatal point. Not only did this moment mark the end of one of Greece's greatest warriors, but it also underscored the ruthlessness of the gods, who saw mortals as instruments for their own disputes. At the end of the war, after 10 years of bloody fighting, it was human cunning that decided the fate of Troy. The wooden horse, designed by Odysseus, allowed the Greeks to enter the city and destroy it. Even so, the destruction of Troy was seen as an event sanctioned by the gods, an act that served both to punish the arrogance of the Trojans and to demonstrate human frailty in the face of the divine will. The Trojan War was not just a fight between men. It was a cosmic spectacle that showed the ambiguous relationship between gods and mortals. The gods, while powerful, were emotionally flawed, their rivalries and passions often mirroring those of humans. To mortals, the war was a cruel lesson. Even the grandest heroes were at the mercy of forces beyond their love, in all its complexity, has always been a central theme in Greek mythology. At the heart of this human aspect were Eros and Aphrodite, two figures who embodied the power of desire, passion, and often emotional destruction. Together, they shaped not only the relationships between mortals, but also between the gods, showing that even immortals were vulnerable to the intricate webs of love. Aphrodite, goddess of beauty and love, was both a seductive and manipulative figure. In many stories, her influence on mortals went beyond the simple union of couples. She used love as a tool to cause chaos and alter destinies. Eros, his son, is better known as the god of desire. Depicted as a winged youth, he carried arrows that could both inflame passion and cause rejection. Together, mother and son formed an irresistible but dangerous duo. The myth of Aphrodite's birth already suggests her transformative power. According to one of the best-known versions, it emerged from the foams of the sea, formed by the blood of Uranus after its castration by Kronos. From the moment of her appearance, her unparalleled beauty captivated everyone around her, mortal and immortal alike. Their presence not only inspired love, but also generated rivalry, jealousy, and often war. A notable example of Aphrodite's influence is the case of Helen and Paris, which sparked the Trojan War. It was Aphrodite's promise that Paris would have Helen's love that started the conflict. Their relationship, though fiery, was fraught with tragedy, showing that love, under divine influence, was not always a positive force. Eros, on the other hand, was often described as unpredictable. Their arrows could unite unlikely lovers or cause unrequited passions, leading to suffering. One of the most emblematic myths is the story of Eros and Psyche. Despite being immortal, Psyche possessed a beauty that rivaled that of Aphrodite. Out of jealousy, Aphrodite ordered Eros to make Psyche fall in love with a monster, but instead he fell in love with her himself. The relationship between Eros and Psyche is a tale of love, trust, and overcoming, symbolizing the strength of true love. However, the power of Aphrodite and Eros was not limited to romantic love. They also influenced the desire for power, revenge, and even glory. Many Greek heroes, such as Achilles and Hercules, were guided by intense passions, sometimes inspired, sometimes exacerbated by these gods. This duality shows that love, for the Greeks, was both a blessing and a curse, a creative and destructive force. The myths of Aphrodite and Eros continue to resonate in modern culture, representing the complexity of human emotions. They remind us that love is a powerful force, capable of uniting, transforming, and sometimes destroying. Even today, the influence of these gods can be seen in stories, songs, and the way we understand our own passions and desires. Although time has obscured the details of ancient legends, the influence of the Olympian gods remains alive in our culture, beliefs, and imagination. Even after millennia since myths were recorded, the impact of these immortal deities still resonates in almost every aspect of human life, from art and philosophy to values and behaviors. The legacy of the gods begins with their unmistakable presence in the foundations of Western culture. They were much more than mythical figures. They have become archetypes, shaping how humans see themselves and the world around them. Zeus, for example, represented the highest authority, but also the duality of power. He could be just and protective, but also impulsive and unfaithful. This human complexity of the gods made their stories timeless, allowing each generation to reinterpret their messages. The deities of Olympus also shaped the human view of morality and destiny. Myths often explored the boundaries between right and wrong, demonstrating that choices, whether mortal or immortal, had consequences. The tragedy of Oedipus, for example, not only reflected the power of prophecies, but also the dangers of ignoring divine signs. To the ancient Greeks, these stories were not just entertainment, but warnings about how to live in harmony with the cosmos. Another enduring aspect of the Olympic legacy is in art and literature. Works such as Homer's Iliad and Odyssey not only preserved the myths, but laid the foundation for epic storytelling. Sculptures, paintings, and even architectural masterpieces, such as the temples dedicated to the gods, continue to inspire artists and creators to this day. The very concept of beauty, often associated with Aphrodite, influenced the Renaissance and other artistic movements that sought to capture divine perfection. In addition, the legacy of the Olympian gods extended beyond Greek culture, being adopted, reinterpreted, and integrated by other civilizations. The Romans, for example, incorporated the Greek gods, giving them new names and roles, but preserving their essence. Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and others became symbols of Roman power, while Greek myths directly influenced the religion, law, and even politics of the empire. The gods also left a profound psychological impact. Carl Jung, one of the founders of analytical psychology, identified in Greek myths universal archetypal patterns that resonate in the collective unconscious. Zeus, Hera, Athena, and others were not just literary figures, but personifications of psychic forces that shape human behavior. This approach showed that the Olympic myths were not just ancient stories, but a reflection of the complexities of the human mind. In terms of values, the gods taught humans about both their virtues and their vices. They represented emotional extremes, such as the wisdom of Athena, the fury of Ares, the vanity of Aphrodite, and the cunning of Hermes. By observing these characteristics in the gods, the ancient Greeks understood themselves better, learning to seek balance. This search for harmony remains a fundamental principle in philosophy and ethics. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Olympic legacy is its ability to adapt. Even in an era dominated by science and technology, Greek myths continue to fascinate. They appear in movies, books, and series, being reinterpreted for new audiences. Heroes like Hercules, Perseus, and Achilles continue to inspire stories of courage and sacrifice, while the Olympian gods are reimagined as tragic, complex, and above all, deeply human figures. What remains of the presence of the gods is not just a collection of stories, but a living part of human identity. They remind us that despite our achievements, we are still driven by the same questions the ancient Greeks asked. What is the purpose of life? What is our role in the universe? How can we balance our desires and responsibilities? The answers may vary, but the gods of Olympus continue to offer inspiration, warnings, and solace. As we look back at the myths that have shaped humanity, we realize that the gods never really left us. They live on in our narratives, our ideas, and our constant search for something greater. Thus, Olympus, although invisible, remains present, an eternal reminder of how much we are connected to the divine, the human, and the extraordinary. So, member of Living on YouTube, which of these stories of the gods of Olympus surprised you the most? Leave your opinion in the comments and share it with those who love to dive into myths and mysteries. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more epic content like this. And remember, the lessons of the gods are still among us. Just look at the sky or into ourselves. See you in the next video.